Asked to give a overview of the bond expenditure summaries or bond expenditures over the last couple of years since we did take out the bond. I will apologize before I cough because I know I will cough before it's over. Originally, the bond was taken out in 2010 amid other projects that were possibly planned, but those projects fell through. Regardless of why the money ended up where it did, the main objectives of the bond, whether it was isolated by itself or part of another larger project, were to upgrade buildings' infrastructure and envelopes, to enhance the curriculum, to improve safety and security, and to make extracurricular facility improvements. These four objectives were developed over a long process of talking to teachers, dealing with the high school principals and their staff and administration down here. And when the bottom line finally came, those are the four top priorities in general that were decided to use that bond expenditure for. In doing that, over the course of the last 6 years to current, we have expended a majority of that money in 2014. That was the months from God knows where, the fact that we got as much work done in that summer span with McDowell as we did, but that was where the majority of it was spent. But that is a layout and a summary of expenditures since the bond became available to use for projects. As the bond matured and as the process unfolded, we rewrote some of the particulars of the bond to be able to include other structures outside of just the high schools. Originally, the bond was taken out to do work just at the high schools, but at a point relatively new in the process, it was decided that we would rewrite the scope of the bond and utilize that bond to deal with those same four objectives, but across all buildings. In the past 6 years, we have spent these amounts, $684,000 on Asbury. A majority of that, for those of you who are new to the board, was a result of a roof failure that we had at Asbury. And that roof failure caused severe damage interior to interior walls as well as the exterior of the building. So about $525,000 of that $680,000 was spent on that emergency repair. Bow Valley, about $141,000. Chestnut Hill, about 1.2. Grandview, too many dollars in there, that should be 1.95. Ridgefield, Tracy, and Vernondale. You'll notice that we haven't spent any of the bond money on Ridgefield or Vernondale due to their current listings on the market. Tracy is one of the newer schools, not as much repair needed or appropriated there. Chestnut Hill and Grandview really got the majority of it. Middle schools, the same thing. Our middle schools are very, very solid. Despite the renovation in Westlake, almost, what, Marty, 20 years ago now? No, 17 years ago, 18. And building Walnut Creek even longer, and J.S. Wilson's construction in 2008, we've only had to make minor repairs. The majority of the money spent at J.S. Wilson, if you're familiar with the construction process that we were involved in with J.S. Wilson in making it a green building, the infrastructure there is a very, very complicated system. And we had a rooftop failure on one of the units that supplied heat to primarily the cafeteria and gym area. And that's where the majority of that money was spent. Walnut Creek, the majority of the money that's spent at Walnut Creek has been replacing skylights as they fail. I know skylights provide wonderful natural light, but as far as maintaining, they're paying. The majority of the money has been spent on MIHS and McDowell. I want to make it clear that while McDowell's number is huge, I could not separate out, or I did not separate out, some of the expenses that were conveyed over both buildings. For instance, when we did our telecommunications upgrade and did the infrastructure, that was all incorporated into one bid, so I didn't split it out between buildings. When we upgraded all of our science classrooms, 9 through 12, with earth and space science and biology at MIHS and chemistry and physics at the high school, the way the bids came in was for a total package. So what I did is included all of those upgrades into the McDowell number. The $1.8 million was specifically spent on MIHS, while the majority of the $16 million was spent on McDowell. Some of that number does involve MIHS expense as well. MLC at the time, because of the alternative education program, and again, I included just in here because in that year we spent $70,000 on windows, and the PO doesn't separate out which windows went where. This was before my time. MEC, we had some masonry restoration, some HVAC repairs, and again, because I took over controlling the bond and managing the bond after 2011 and 12, those POs that were generated for projects with the bond were not specific in terms of if there was a PO for flooring to Stone Mountain for $16,000, that's all it said. Okay? I did go back with my maintenance supervisor and we kind of brainstormed where it was going, but that was 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's hard to remember exactly where it went. But I can guarantee you that $6.3 million went into the same 4 objectives that dictated the entire bond. One of the primary things people were interested in is how is this distributed? I broke it out into categories. What I call envelope, the exterior envelope and grounds. That includes concrete and asphalt repair, doors and windows, masonry restoration, roofing, playground restoration, where we spent about $300,000, by the way. Stormwater management. About $10 million of the bond was spent on that exterior envelope of McDowell, MIHS, and the rest of the buildings, at about 36%. Interior infrastructure, which includes fixtures. Now I want to be careful to understand what I mean by fixtures. About 30% of the science room upgrades was spent on fixtures, new cabinets, new equipment, new everything. Okay, we made 21st century science labs 9 through 12. General construction, walls, floors, and ceilings, the electrical and plumbing upgrades, HVAC repairs, and technology infrastructure. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about interior infrastructure. And that was $9.5 million. Again, part of the objectives were to enhance our extracurricular facilities. In the time of the bond, we've resurfaced Gus Anderson Field. We have renovated completely Paul Gall Gymnasium. We've built new dugouts and a backstop at the baseball field. We are currently involved in the athletic pavilion renovation, the David P. Hamlin Complex, which is across the street on Kahi, press box renovation, and some outside bleacher replacement. $4.3 million out of the total $28.8 million, about 15.5%. The rest of the money, the majority of it was divided out and spread out into safety and security, where we put new video systems in the high schools, new fire alarm system in MIHS. We renovated the walkway and put in almost $60,000 worth of security offices at both ends of the walkway. The west parking lot, I know we can get in and get stuck here, but that was moved because of safety and security. That's why we moved it, and that's where the expense is. Playground restoration, stormwater management, and elevator repair. Brad and I kid around. We will never have to replace another elevator in this district, and it's a good thing because those were the most trying projects